Do you know what's worse than telling your children that there's a Santa Claus? Telling them there's a God who might burn them forever. One lie gives a child wonder and excitement for a season. The other plants fear so deeply in their nervous system that many adults are still trying to recover from it. And I'm not saying this to attack parents. Most of us were passing along what we were taught. But today, I want to explore, with gentleness and clarity, why the doctrine of hell isn't just theologically wrong, but psychologically damaging, and why it ends up becoming a form of spiritual child abuse, even when taught by loving people with good intentions. Let's start with something science has made very clear. A child's brain isn't built for terror. The fear center, the amygdala, develops early, but the part of the brain that regulates logic, trust, and emotional safety, the prefrontal cortex, doesn't fully mature until the mid-20s. So when you tell a child, God might torture you forever if you don't believe the right thing, that message bypasses logic. It goes straight into panic. It becomes part of how their brain wires itself. Harvard and Stanford studies show that fear-based religious messages activate the same pathways triggered in chronic trauma. They elevate stress hormones. They reshape neural connections. They change identity formation. A child can't process eternal consequences. They can only feel the fear. And this is where the real damage begins. Attachment science tells us kids thrive when the person over them is safe, consistent, and stable. But if God is presented as someone who loves you and might torture you, your nervous system doesn't know what to do with that. So children raised with hell tend to develop confusion about God, disorganized attachment, religious OCD, guilt disorders, anxiety, nightmares, and fear of death. And many never feel good enough to be close to God again. Fear and love cannot coexist in the same relationship. Not with a parent, and not with God. Psychologists call this toxic shame, the belief that I am bad at my core. Nothing produces that faster than telling a child, you are born evil, and if you don't get it right, God will send you to hell. That message doesn't make a child moral. It makes them terrified. It disconnects them from their own worth. It teaches them that their mistakes are dangerous. It conditions them to fear their own thoughts. But Scripture paints a different picture entirely. We are God's offspring. We came from Him. We belong to Him. And every day of our life was written before we lived a single one. A child isn't born a sinner needing to escape fire. A child is born loved, needing to discover it. Science tells us kids need a safe caregiver, and the Bible tells us that God is the safest one of all. There is no verse in Scripture that teaches eternal torture. Not one. Judgment means setting things right. Fire means purification, not pain. Death is the absence of life, not the presence of endless suffering. And in the end, God becomes all in all. Not all in some, not all in the lucky ones. All. Jesus didn't come to save us from God. He came to show us God. He is the image of the invisible God. The God who heals, restores, embraces, and brings every story to a beautiful conclusion. Millions of adults today are quietly suffering from religious trauma they were given as children. They wonder why they feel unworthy, why God feels distant, why their faith is filled with anxiety, why they panic over mistakes. But it's not because they're weak. It's because they were taught fear instead of love. They were trained to brace themselves for judgment, not to rest in grace. Once the threat of hell is gone, something inside begins to heal. You can breathe again. You can think clearly again. You can love God without trembling. You can rediscover the joy that was stolen from you. A good parent would never torture their children into obedience. A good parent would never use fear to force love. A good parent would never burn a child for getting the story wrong. And God, the true God, is better than the best parent you've ever known. He restores, He teaches, He heals, He purifies, He finishes what He started. And He writes a glorious ending for every single person He ever created. Hell is spiritual child abuse. Love is who God is. And when you finally see the difference, everything changes.